During my career as a private investigator, I'll often get asked, what is the best case you ever worked? And that is very, very difficult for me to pinpoint one case. But if I had to pick one of the top 10, I think it would be, ironically enough, the very first case I had. I was a private investigator in a very small office with a phone that didn't ring and an empty Rolodex and no clients and no work. And another private investigator was kind enough to bring a client to me who had been convicted of raping his stepdaughter. He had already gone to trial, he was convicted, and he was facing 20 to 40 years in prison, which for him would have been a life sentence. So this investigator said, "You're not doing much, so why don't you see if you can help this guy?" So I said, "Bring me the transcripts of the trial." I read it, and I was thoroughly convinced the guy was guilty and wanted no part of the case at all. His insistence that he was not guilty, like many guilty clients, was a little over the top though. So I was a little bit curious and I didn't have a lot going on. So I said, "I'll take a look at it. Let me interview some witnesses." And I did that. I got very fortunate that I found the alleged victim's aunt who had some of her clothes, and in the clothes was a diary that she had kept when she was 16, supposedly the year of the rape or rapes. In the diary on August 22nd, it said, "Greg de-virginized me today." Now, if that's true, the events that she just transcribed in the summer could have not happened. They just didn't exist. So then I found Greg in Washington, D.C. He was a Marine. He told me that he did de-virginize her. That was her first time. He further told me that she made it all up in concert with her mother so that they would not have to share any of the proceeds from the divorce. So it was a total setup between mother and daughter on my client. I found one other witness that was a friend of the victims who told me that she was appalled at what she knew, but she didn't want to say anything because she thought she would become implicated. But since you were asking me the questions, I'll tell you one other part of the story. Now, that in of itself, to get somebody off a life sentence is a once-in-a-lifetime possible case. But now this case is compounded by the fact that this friend tells me that the victim was dating the district attorney who prosecuted the father. It was such stunning news, I couldn't even believe it myself. I had to repeat it about 3 or 4 times. So now, having come out of the Department of Justice where they teach you to try to clean your own linen, I put the case together, took it to the district attorney's office, and told them that they had some work to do. They had a big problem on their hands. So we have a guy wrongly convicted, and we have a district attorney who is dating the victim. Nothing came of it. So I did what I thought would be the only best thing. Since they weren't going to do anything, I called a press conference. Now, not being very well known, only one person showed up at the press conference, but it was a radio station. And the rest, they say, is history, because from that interview, the papers picked it up. And it was front page in many of the newspapers around the country the next day. And we always joke that every year I still get a Christmas card some 35 years later from my client saying, "Thank you once again, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year."